So because design is all about coffee, as Richard pointed out, we won't keep you too long. We just got the chance for you guys to field some questions to our panel here. I have one first, and because the theme is culture change, and I'm sure all of us can, it's a very transient subject, but we can all relate to kind of trying to change culture in different kinds of organizations. And Sarah and Julia mentioned entrenched bureaucracy and the importance of strong leadership, which I thought was nice. And Richard, small teams of people trying to shift huge organizations, which again, I think is something we can all relate to, and sometimes not feeling like we're getting very far. And then Alex, talking the city's language and putting small children in sacks. So yeah, if I'm gonna ask the first question because I'm holding the microphone. But if every cynic is just a disappointed idealist, and the man that said that was actually born here, how do we turn the no, we can't, and the we've tried that and it just didn't work because people into, as Julia and Sarah said, the people that are just willing to say yes and try. We'll start at the end with Julia.
When I let you know, we'll figure it out. We'll let you know. I think at VA that's an incredibly big part of what we do, and I think that change is hard. I think for any human being. And then when you think of an organization of 350,000 people who all each individually, all naturally find change difficult, I think making it safe, we try to put ourselves out there as much as possible. We talk a lot about taking blame and giving credit. And I think that's one way we've started to make some inroads. Also, that we're really committed to this. I think, I'm sure you all know organizations that sort of go through change management cycles, but the consultants come in and then leave and the organization is still there. So that's one of the reasons I think that both Sarah and I have stayed is our commitment to this is not a passing fancy.
Hello. Sarah?
Yes to all that. And I'm just going to throw something out there, which is sometimes it's just you can't. And I think that's okay. Again, it's like we're going for the bright spots. We're looking for the people that we can work with in small groups to get concentric circles of larger groups along. Sometimes you just need to go around some people or over or under.
Well, Christian yesterday morning mentioned it's about 10% of people that might just not be willing to change and that maybe they should be moved on, but maybe that's a different discussion.
We were quite lucky, but also unlucky at the Olympics. So we were lucky that the IOC insisted that every single venue had have a test event a year beforehand, so that we could kind of rinse out some of the things, some of the problems that were maybe in the infrastructure. That didn't really tell us much about the experience, though, about sort of spectators, because the numbers of spectators were actually quite low, and it wasn't the full numbers that we'd be using at games time. We did have one particular individual who was very, very reticent to release any budget at all for our kind of games time mitigations. We had a tiny, tiny bit, and when he saw the results by the end of the first day, he then gave us sort of 10 times that much, because he was instantly convinced that the benefit that brought to not just the experience, but also to his precious venues. So, but that was tricky, because we had all this money, relatively speaking, but no time to kind of organize ourselves and spend it, because the because the games are happening. So it was a kind of a blessing, but also a little bit of a curse. But we got there in the end by demonstrating the value.
And Richard?
Yeah, I mean, I think an important thing for me is I think we sort of tend to focus a lot on group activities within sort of organizations where we get a lot of people together and we co-create something, and I think that's a very powerful tool for alignment, but I think you can't undervalue those individual conversations that you have, because it's very easy for things to get lost in a group of people. And I think it's surprising how much time I find we invest in one-on-one relationships with people in companies, like beyond, I mean, partly it's beyond the project, but, to understand them a little bit more, but I think also just that you can't get those perspectives openly in a group sometimes, and sometimes like focusing on that is a big opportunity.
Nice, thank you. I'm really sorry, I can't remember who said it yesterday, but somebody, one of their strategies, I think it might have been Marcus from Doberman, but or Anders talked about adopting a stakeholder, and everyone was sort of assigned somebody. Cool, I think we probably have about 1 minute before you can get coffee. So, is there any questions for the guys about culture change? I'm going to run over myself. Catch. Yes. Brilliant. Could somebody at the back ask a question so I can try and kick it to you? In honour of the Rugby World Cup. Hey.
Sorry.
Thanks, Sonia.
Hi. Oops, sorry. This is Angela Ye from Ye Ideology. As we watch corporations, looking at the talent economy as it's changing, you see that corporations it's harder for them to keep talent and, again, maintain that legacy. So you're right. The people and the stakeholders that you're working with, they're changing out. How do you maintain quality over time when the stakeholders are changing hands? How do you then capture a legacy from years ago? How do you hope that whatever insights you capture, it's still there when the stakeholders leave and new people come in?
Would you like to answer first?
Oh, would I have an answer to that?
No, sorry. Who are you directing the question at?
To all of them, actually, or if whoever has a perspective about that.
Very quickly, I think, so you established a set of tools. So we created a vision. We had Seb co-write at the beginning saying what he was going to do for spectators. Then we had an actionable vision, and there are principles that sit underneath that and sort of individual strategies which we sign up to. The lucky thing about the Olympics, I had to say, it was a finite period of time. So when closing ceremony is done, it's done. So we're not actually going to build a relationship with the London Olympics. So in that respect, it was quite fortunate. But you've still got sort of 7 years of preparation. So you've still got to keep your stakeholders on that journey along the way. And as I say, by having a very clear, co-created vision that they've been involved with, you've generated their buy-in. Those are the kind of some of the tricks that you can kind of utilize to give yourself a bit of a fighting chance, I guess.
Thank you.
I mean, I think that issue is a very relevant one for us. I mean, we find a lot of companies when they have, brilliant people, they tend to move them around so they get experience in all different areas of the business. And that can be very difficult when you're midway through a project and somebody shifts over to another group. I mean, we all hate PowerPoint, but I think there is a lot of our clients would refer to it as the money slide. So the kind of slide that they can insert into one of their kind of decks that very concisely captures the essence of the project, whether that's principles or something else. I think that's pretty powerful.
I think we're all probably finishing our presentations with the money slide now, aren't we? Thank you.
So we're, I think, still too early. We're probably only about a year-ish into our work. So I think what everyone, both in the organization and probably in general, is waiting to see is the first change out. And actually similar to what Chris experienced with the change from Bloomberg to de Blasio, I'm now learning in Washington, D.C., change of administrations, even going from the same party, is considered to be incredibly disruptive. So we're going to see what that does. Secretary Bob, as we like to call him, is on record as saying he's going to stay as long as he can, and I certainly personally would hope he's given a chance to continue across the next administration to hopefully carry through some of the sort of initial things that need to be pulled through. But we'll see. I think it is something that's very much on people's minds.
Yeah, and I'd say that in addition to all these sort of formal mechanisms that you can put in place to transfer knowledge in that way, it's just really important to also think about the informal, sort of folkloric network that is a very living entity within an organization, I think, and be paying attention to that and spreading and diffusing information through those kinds of networks.
Great, thank you guys. I'm conscious of time, and Adam may be rugby tackling one of us because we've run over. You'll be around in the coffee break if anyone else has a question. I have one final question, and will England beat Australia today in the Rugby World Cup? Just say yes. Great. Thank you very much, guys.